Hi and welcome to Whisky Shared. You're watching my review of Ludlow Distillery Cider Brandy Cask. I'm Toby and you're watching Whisky Shared. Welcome to my review of Ludlow Distillery Cider Brandy Cask. The Ludlow Distillery is an English distillery not far from the Welsh border, and it's been crafting spirits since 2018. This particular whisky is lightly peated. It was aged in an ex-bourbon cask for 18 months and then in an ex-cider brandy cask for another 18 months. This particular whisky is 55%, it's non-chill filtered and natural colour, and it retailed for £75. It was crafted for Exploring English Whisky and made available on the Still in Cask platform. Should we find out what it tastes like? On to the whisky. So before I start nose and tasting, let's have a quick look at the colour. I'd say that's like an amber, really is a nice shade indeed. Let's start with the nose. Right, so the cider brandy cask influence is definitely prominent. I'm getting notes of apple strudel. I'm getting baked apples. Also get some red berry coulis. Possibly from the new make though. I'm getting caramel, toffee, and there's also like a vanilla custard note. Very nice. I'm also getting some baking spices like cinnamon and also ginger. Let's move on to the palate. Yeah, so there's definitely a good mouthfeel with this. It's full of flavour, and the light peat smoke, it comes through and it's ashy, but the light peat comes from 30% Scottish malted barley, I believe, and the rest is English malted barley. Really does add an interesting dimension to this fruity dram. Let's have another sip. Yeah, so the apple and sweet notes from the nose, they definitely carry through. And I'm getting caramelised apple, I'm getting toffee, which is really nice. I'd say it's not as sweet on the palate as it was on the nose. And the ashy sort of peat note definitely complements those fruity flavours. Let's have one final sip. Yeah, so on top of the sweetness, on top of the fruits, on top of the ashy smoke, there's also a dry nutty character which works really well with this. And yeah, it really, I think it really complements the flavours that I picked up already. In terms of finish, I'd say it's very long. The high ABV, it definitely gives a noticeable warmth, and the apple notes persist with hints of caramel and spice, but there's also a pleasant dry finish which encourages another sip. It really is a nice whisky. In terms of value, well, this is £75. There's still, as far as I'm aware, a handful of bottles left on the Exploring English Whisky website, but this was a whisky that had passed me by. I do regularly look on Still in Cask for interesting whiskies, and I try to pick ones that aren't necessarily available too quickly. So, you know, I try to have a gap between bottles that I've already purchased. But I don't think this one sort of piqued my interest at the time. And yeah, I wasn't too worried about missing it. But at the Somerton Whisky Festival earlier this year, I got to try it in person. And yeah, I thought it was really interesting and decided to pick up a bottle. And this is the only whisky I bought that day. This particular whisky is interesting because obviously they were going to bottle all of it, and they decided to save half of it in the end because it hadn't sold out. And what they did was they put the remaining half into an ex-Islay cask, and that is back on Stilling Cask as a bottle that you can purchase once it matures. I believe it's only going to be aged in the ex-Islay cask for up to a year, so it should be available sometime in 2026. I'll put a link in the description if you want to check out Stilling Cask or the details for this particular bottle as well, because yeah, it's definitely something interesting. I think it's a combination that I don't think I've had. I don't think I've had an apple cider brandy cask finished whiskey, and yeah, I suppose it didn't immediately sort of didn't immediately sort of pique my interest, as I said. So the fact that I got to try it meant that I wanted to buy it. And I think a lot of whiskey we buy based on reputation, or we buy based on the way the bottle looks, or we buy based on what we think it will taste like. And yeah, this particular whiskey was definitely one that I wouldn't have bought had I not tried it. So I'm glad I did, and obviously I'm glad I could share it with you in this review. If you've tried anything from Ludlow, especially if you've tried this particular whiskey, then let me know in the comments as always. And if you haven't, it's definitely a distillery I'm going to keep my eye on from now on. And yeah, I'm definitely interested to try more of their whiskey. Hopefully you found that interesting, and hopefully I'll see you again soon. Sauncher. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, why not give it a like or a comment? And please consider subscribing for more videos like this.